Hello everyone, and a very good afternoon to all of you too. I'm Dr. Shamini Sivavikraman from the Department of Research and Innovation, English Language Teaching Center ELTC, Ministry of Education Malaysia, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, the title of our webinar today is Connecting and Making Use of Data in ELT. We are fortunate to have with us this afternoon Dr. Khairul Aini binti Muhammad Jiri and Dr. Rashida binti Rahmat from the R&I Department of ELTC, who were also the leading people for the PPK BIS initiative and school support plan since 2016 to 2020 under the MBM-MBI policy of MOE. The English Enhancement Program for Schools, Program Peningkatan Kemahiran Bahasa Inggeris di Sekolah, also known as PPK BIS initiative, focused on training teachers nationwide, on using student data to understand and improve students' learning by empowering teachers to develop effective classroom teaching instructions. Today's webinar will share with us more input and knowledge on this particular aspect. We are going to discuss on how to make sense with students' data, how students' data can be utilized maximum to assist teachers' instruction and lesson planning, and finally, using the data to improve students' performance in classroom and out of classroom as well. The webinar will address the objectives above with close reference to recent significant research, best practices and supported by data, some take-home points from the recently conducted school support plan under the PPK BIS initiative by ELTC. A gentle reminder for our viewers out there, please feel free to post your questions while the webinar is going on live. We will answer the question posted in the chat box after the webinar session. At this juncture, we would also like to thank BSTP and BPG for this collaboration broadcasting the webinar as a team from KPM. Okay, without further ado, let's begin our webinar today. Dr. Khairul, how are you? All right. So that's Dr. Khairul and this Dr. Rashida. Throughout the year, we know that teachers collect various types of information about students while they are teaching and while they're in the classroom, or sometimes out of the classroom as well. That helps them improve their classroom instructions and teaching and learning planning. For example, to review, to readjust, and also to reteach. This information, I believe, is called students' data. Let us start today's session with sharing a few aspects of what we need to know basically about data or the word data itself. Maybe we can start by defining the word data from both our panel. And shall we start with Dr. Khairul first? What do you think data is actually?
All right. Thank you, Dr. Shamini. Welcome to R&I webinar. For all viewers. Okay, when we talk about data, Shamini, you mentioned data, all right? For most people, especially people who are not in academia, they feel a little bit of scared. The word data seems scary to most people because for most people, the word data imply tedious facts and figures, and also tedious process of data collection. They always equate data to data collection, a long process of data collection. But actually, when we talk about data, students' data, we actually talk about data that we can get from the classroom, okay, at the daily basis. For teachers, data can only happen in the classroom with students. Okay, so what kind of data will help us? So there are so many types of data around us, especially for teachers. there are essential data and non-essential data. But in the classroom context, when we talk about data in classroom context, the type of data that can be collected or can be observed come from different sources. So the first one is simple, is based on your observation on the students' performance. For example, you look at the homework that you give to the students, or the activity that you do with them in the classroom, or the assignment given. So you observe the performance of the students in the classroom. That can be the data that you might want to use later to inform your own instruction. The second one is the data that based on the factor that improves student achievement. Just now we talk about performance, now achievement. There are different types of data that can be used to look at the achievement, for example, motivation level of the students in the classroom, or the type of teaching practices that you do with the students until they get certain types of achievement. So that can be the thing that you want to observe in the classroom, and that can be data too. And the third one, of course, this is very famous among teachers, the assessment data. From SPM, from monthly tests, from PMR, the national assessment that most of us tend to focus on when we talk about data. So, Dr. Syamini, there are three types of, sources of data that we can get in the classroom. If that answers your questions.
It's pretty interesting because for all of us, normally what we think when we hear the word data, it's normally associated with numbers, assessment and exams. So in this case, data is not just connected with numbers, but also what the eye actually visibly sees in the classroom, and the actual happening of your students' performance and outcome when you have completed a lesson. And that gives you much more immediate space or immediate reaction into coming up with an intervention to solve certain issues in your classroom. Okay. So what about Dr. Rashida? What have you got to define data based on your understanding?
Oh, okay. Thank you, Dr. Syamini. All right. Just to highlight that the D word, which referring to the data, okay, the first letter in that word itself, okay, data comes from the word datum. Okay, if we want to look at the grammar part of it, datum means one data, but that, okay, only one source of information, and then data would be a lot. So the connotation would be there in our heads, regardless whether you are educators or not. So basically, when people heard the word or hear the word, they will be nervous, skeptical, especially us, the English language teachers. We are language people. Figures, numbers are not in our dictionary. Statistics, normally we refuse to look at it. All right, so it's normal. That is normal. So I would look at data in a different angle a bit, though it will not run away too much from whatever Dr. Khairul has said. So data from the research perspective, it can be any information that is gathered, normally quantitatively or qualitatively. And this information that is being gathered will be used for the researcher to move on to the next step, or whatever he or she needs to do in order to reach the objective. All right, and as for in the context of education, I would divide data into two big levels. One, the school-wide, the school level, which is what we call it as school-wide data. This is all about all the practices that shape the overall culture of the school. And then the second one, this is where we are going to discuss later, the classroom data. This is where the cyclical work of curriculum, instructions, and also assessment is going to be focused on. Okay, we can say this is more to classroom-based data. All right. So in the world of ESL context, okay, data can just carry the same meaning or perspective from research. Okay, collecting any information or any information that is gathered has a source of information for teachers to move on or to focus on in their teaching and learning. All right. So basically, it's input on how to progress, on what you need to see that students need to improve on or to work on, or whatever that will assist their instruction in the classroom. So basically, data in ELT classroom, English language teaching classroom, will involve sometimes numerical results. Okay, but it also can include the products and also performances, as what Dr. Khairul mentioned just now, the performances of the students.
The outcome.
Yes. So basically, data is not that bad. We don't assume the word data with is bad. It's going to point at my mistake more. So the pointing fingers to the teachers if data is being mentioned, that is the skeptical that we have among teachers. All right. So most importantly, what I can see is that data is as it is, but what actually we are going to do about the data is the real important thing. All right. And then sometimes, yeah, we know that data will lead to something that we don't like. Be open about it, discuss, and I guess it will lead to a solution. All right, that's how I can say about data.
Okay. All right. So now we can see that data is something wide. Data can be also equivalent to findings in a classroom if you look at it in a research perspective. And data can be classified as a pre-class data, or in-class data, and post-class data, meaning before you conduct your lessons, while you conduct your lessons, after you conduct your lessons. So, since we know that teachers are surrounded with data now, okay, everything can be data for them, maybe we can now start talking about how teachers can make sense, real sense of having this data around them, which in this context of discussion, we can refer as students' data per se. And probably to answer on this, Dr. Khairul again.
Okay. All right, Dr. Shamini, interesting. Okay, it's quite difficult to, to portray data as something positive, especially in the classroom, because the word data tend to be a big word for teachers because they equate it for the word with something that is tedious, that is difficult, with numbers and collection processes that takes a lot of time. Okay, so when you talk about making sense of data, how do I make sense of the data that I have in the classroom? I'm very happy to see that the culture of looking at data is becoming increasingly popular nowadays, especially in schools. That is the positive part of it, because nowadays everything we tend to go back to data. Students' performance, the TOV that you have in school, these are all data. All right. So making sense, how do you make sense of all this in school and in a classroom? To make it simple, actually, we need to remember one thing, okay? The approach that you use in teaching will determine the students' data that you get later on. That is how you make sense of the data. You need to see the relationship between these two. Then you'll be able to see and make sense of the data that you have. All right. When you understand that the strategy that you use in the classroom, the approach that you use in the classroom will determine the type of student data that you will get later on, then you'll be able to understand the strength, the weaknesses, and also the challenges that you face in the classroom. Without analyzing the data that you have or analyzing the instruction that you give to the students, it's quite difficult to see that. That's how teacher makes sense of data in the classroom.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I know teachers have a lot of data with them, so they kind of not really know how to start to use the data. And sometimes, most of the time, we will hear that, so I have little time to really scrutinize the data that I have. All right? So this is a challenge for teachers because they do have the information, but they don't know how they are going to, really digest the data and help them. So again, making sense of data also is assumed as something tedious. And this is the reason why we are here today, because we want to help teachers to see how and what are the ways that they can use in order to make data they have in the classroom.
Okay, that means it's what I see now. It's making sense of data is becoming more aware of the data that you have around you. Probably that will first thing that you need to do is to be aware of the different types of data that you have around you, and then only become more, make yourself be aware and then understand how you're going to scrutinize or prioritize or rationalize the data. Simple things like after a class, even if you see a student smile, that becomes the data. Okay, so firstly you collect the data that my students have actually smiled, and then you analyze why did they smile. Okay, so it happens in steps like that. So since now we know that how we can actually go towards making sense of data, how do we actually collect data? How do teachers can actually collect data in a proper or in a much more organized manner? Dr. Khairul?
Thank you, Dr. Shamini. Like I said before, teachers have a lot of data with them. Some can be essential, some can be non-essential. But anyway, the way to collect the data can be in many ways too. For example, we can start with something as simple as students' work, the work that you give to students, the homework, the assignment, the activities that you had assigned to the student. That can be data. The second one can be students' feedback. For example, after the lesson, and then you just ask for quick feedback, whether you understand the lesson that we had today, or whether you enjoy it. That can be feedback. They will say that I like the first part, but I don't like the second part. Okay, that will be the feedback that you get. Or I understand this part, but I don't really understand the second part. There are many ways that you can get feedback. Sometimes it is just a quick feedback. Sometimes it can be written. It can be verbal. Okay, visual. They can just draw something to show that, to give feedback to the lesson for that day. That can be feedback also. All right, the third one will be the reflection. Okay, students' reflection, it goes beyond feedback because students will analyze the activity that they had done for that day, and they will express their feelings towards it. For example, they like because they learn, or they don't like the lesson because of a few things that happen in the classroom. So reflection will go deeper in the sense of the feelings of the students towards the learning activity that they have on that day. And the final one will be the assessment result of the students. So these are the types of data that you can collect in the classroom. students' work, students' feedback, student reflections, and also the assessment result. That ever ready in the classroom. You don't have to go far to get all these. You do this every day. Every lesson, all this data will be available to you in every lesson that you have. So data is already there in the classroom. Okay, and what do we do with the data collected? After we had collected all this data, we can analyze it. If you don't like the word analyze, just that you can take a look at it, and it will help you to understand your students and how they learn. Certain students, they are very responsive to music or visual or numbers. You'll be able to understand the students by looking at the data that you had collected just now. And also you will look at all this data and you can understand the content and how to teach. For example, you have a certain idea of teaching content in the classroom, but when you use it in the classroom, it doesn't work. So meaning the content and the way, the instruction that you use do not actually jive in. You need to reconstruct the lesson. So the data will be able to
something more relevant.
Yes, really, you need to look at it and then say, okay, I'm not going to use this style or strategy anymore. I'm going to change because of the students. All right, and knowing the content and also knowing the student will be able to help you to plan. You know the student, they like music, for example. You know the content. The content talks about famous personality. So you know this. You're going to plan something for the students now. So you plan and implement the effective teaching because you know the student and so you know the content. All right, and by being ready to go into the classroom and teach, you'll be able to create a supportive and also, help a supportive situation or supportive environment to the students. So you'll be relaxed because you have planned it well according to the students' needs. And the student will feel relaxed because they know the teacher knows their stuff and they will not make, they will not be afraid to make mistakes. So errors and mistakes will happen, and everyone will be supportive because everyone enjoy the lesson, right? And eventually, after all this happen, it will help you to assess the student and the assessment
In a much meaningful.
Yes, because they enjoy, they want to learn.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the assessment will be meaningful to them because they know the teacher is actually assessing them because the teacher wants to help them, not because the teacher wants to penalize them because of the errors or mistakes that they do in the classroom. So this is why data so much important in the classroom. The correct data will give you the correct information.
Yeah.
The wrong data will give you wrong information and you will, the instruction will go haywire. That is the importance of understanding the data that you have with you every day.
So, all right, based on Dr. Khairul's explanation, that is not to pressurize or add on the already heavy, hectic work schedules that most of the teachers or they have. Please don't have such an idea that data is going to overload what you have already in your mind. But I'm sure there are very much more basic steps that teachers can use easily to collect students' data as well. Probably Dr. Rashida?
Can I add one more point?
Sure.
Before Dr. Rashida. Okay. So in order to do that, how do you do that? Like, it sounds so easy. It sounds so normal to do it. It's easy if you make it a practice. But I don't know, I don't want to say in research, but I think in instructional area, we call that the data-driven approaches. Okay, because every decision that we make will be based on the data that we have on our student and also on our own knowledge on the area that we are going to teach the students. Okay, what is a data-driven approach? Data-driven approach is the instructional approach that relies on the students' data in order to make decision in teaching and learning. All right. So it takes place in the classroom, not outside the classroom. So it's nothing out of the world about it, because because it happens in your own classroom. So the data-driven approach is an approach that you can use, can help you to find the type of instruction that you will use with the student based on the data from the student themselves. All right. So there are basically three main steps that we can actually do in this data-driven approach. The first one is definitely the data collection
itself. Yeah.
All right. I think we have talked about it just now on what type of data that you can collect. All right. And the data will become the database for the students. For example, class 1A, this is the database.
All right.
They are all boys, for example. They like sports. They like to have conversation among themselves. So these are the data that become your database for the student and the class. The second one is when you have all this data, you will need to analyze. Or else not be able to understand certain areas that you need to look at in order to design the lesson for the students. Okay, so when you analyze this data, you need to look at patterns to understand the reasons. For example, most 90% of the students in this classroom, they don't know how to use past tense. So you see the pattern there.
Okay.
And then based on that pattern, you might want to guess the reasons. It can be you don't teach them clearly. Or sometimes it might be they are too active in the classroom. They don't really listen to your instruction. True. So you need to look at the patterns and also the reasons. And then you need to draw the conclusion, okay, I need to plan something based on the patterns and also the reason that I understand on the issue. That's why you need to do the data analysis. And the last one is the action. You plan and then you implement the action. And then if it works, congratulations. If not, you need to reteach. And you go back to the lesson and reteach and redesign your instruction. So this is basically what data-driven
is all about. Okay. This actually reminds me of when I used to be a teacher in school, where we were asked to do item analysis, and all of us would be like, oh my God, is this going to be another headache for my weekend? And you'll be, we bring that the forms to analyze how many of them got it right or wrong, and then we will, in the beginning we used to think, why are we actually doing this for real, but practically that became our data, our findings to, like what you said, pattern our lesson next. But of course this need to be probably restated, always be informed by the school leaders, middle leaders, to the teachers, that you are actually not doing this analysis or data collection for it to be just placed in a file or recording purpose, but there is a use to it. There is some action need to be taken after this, right? So Dr. Rashida, anything on some simple steps on how teachers can actually easily collect students' data?
Yeah. See, at the beginning of the session just now, I said that data will be connected to negative words. All right, so some experts actually have tried to divert that negativity to something positive, where the word data, they try to replace it with evidence, results and outcomes. And even the word data driven from yeah, it's scary because data will be driving you mad, is it? All right, but then some experts try not to focus on that. They try to use another adjectives to describe data driven. It can they try to use data guided, data enhanced, data enriched and data informed. See, again, the word data can't be moved from that term still, but driven is not being used. Thinking that data driven is is too burdensome for the teachers, for us. So try to make it so a little bit relaxing, a bit, not so negative towards it. Use a better adjectives. All right, it's interesting actually because you mentioned about restating it in a different way. Maybe that will try to make our teachers not to be so negative towards data. And then has Dr. Hairul said that there are 3 simple steps to data driven. Okay, data collection, data analysis and data action. The same case here. According to Baudet Siti Mernain, okay, they suggested 3 simple steps as well. You see, the rule of 3. Okay, when people see less numbers, they become less afraid or less threatened. Their mind will be simple, 3. So again, what Dr. Hairul said just now, 3. Yes, and I will also look at 3, but maybe the terms will be slightly, different, but the context will be similar. All right. And one thing that I would like to highlight, if this simple 3, the rule of 3 are going to be practiced, teachers still will be reluctant to use data in their practice because they can't see the big picture. All right, that's what Michael Fullen said in 2004. Okay, maybe too old already, 2004, but then again, it's still relevant nowadays, right? Because we can't see the bigger picture. Why am I looking at this data? Year in, year out, SPM results, PT3 results, UPSR results will be coming out. So why am I looking at it? All right, because they can't see the big picture. Results will be released, that's it. Okay, I'm happy with my students and I don't need to do anything. All right. However, it has being discussed again from the beginning of the session. Data will lead you to something that will try to improve your instruction, especially the instruction. All right. So yes, meaningful. And then I would like to lead you to the three steps, easy steps actually. It's about prepare. Okay, and then the inquire, which is actually under the analysis, and also the third one will be the action or the act. All right, this will be similar as what Dr. Hairul mentioned just now. And if you look at the diagram, okay, from Baudet Siti Mernain, these 3 simples, they looked at it, though it's 3, but every single aspect there would be elements that they need to elaborate. But try not to look at the elaboration. We look at the main words: prepare, inquire, and act. So your mind will be like, ease a bit. Okay, yes. Psychologically, we look at simple 3 words, right? And then it's not too bombastic. All right. So what you need to do when you are at the prepare stage, okay, you need to prepare the right data. Okay, teachers are surrounded with abundance of data, but you need to select the right one. Yes, if you are trying to improve, let's say, the students' writing, of course you will be needing the actual students' piece of writing. You can't be looking at writing that you want to improve, but the data that you are looking at would be the item analysis for reading comprehension. Of course, it won't fit in the purpose. All right. So you may have abundance of data, but you must have the right one. Okay. If you want to improve the student speaking, all right, speaking is something that not easily collected, the data. All right. So how are you going to go about doing it? So you need to get the right data. If you want to make sure your students, for instance, are able to converse, to speak in English better, then you must have data based on speaking. All right? This is what I looked at, the recording, for instance. Okay? So I noticed my students are doing like that. And I will prepare something for speaking to fit in that purpose. All right? And then another one is you need to prepare the data access. As what I said just now. If you want to look at speaking, I mean, you know your students are unable to speak in English. They are not having that confidence to use the language, even to say yes. So what you need to look at the data access towards speaking. All right, and this data, it doesn't mean that it's only merely for you. It must be shareable. All right, I think the practice here in our context, we are not willing to share. My students' work is mine, okay, and then yours will be yours.
Form of intimidation.
Yes, because if you look at my students' essay, oh, you know that I will be teaching in a bad way. I don't say bad, but unacceptable way to you. But I have a reason for this, so I want it to be for my own reference. So make sure that even if it's for speaking, you have that audio shared by others as well. Shared by others meaning that we look at the smaller context in your department members only, the English panel, all right? So make it shareable. I would like to take you to one instance. Let's say a patient is being asked to go to the emergency, okay, for due to certain incident whatsoever, and then they were treated, he or she was treated and whatever, and then asked to go back. And the next time go to the, another hospital. Just go and that, without having any information to be brought to the next hospital. So do you think that teacher, that hospital B will be able to look at the case without the data?
Yes.
Right? So the same case here. If let's say I send my son to this school, knowing that this is the best school for English, I'm looking at the English per se. So I don't bring anything, no results, no whatever for his English performances. So do you think the school will be able to put him in which class? No data, right? That is as simple as that. We bring in that data in that context. All right, so even in the school context, let's say we are moving one student from one class to another. You want to move, you must have justification based on data why you move student B to class 1A, right? Maybe you, that is why, as a class teacher in 1A, I need to know why student B is being put in my class. All right, so I need that information, as simple as that. So make sure that it's shareable. Yes, don't keep it to yourself. All right, okay, and then prepare the team. All this while we will be feeling that data is a burdensome because we are doing it individually, alone. Okay, but remember what the tagline for Liverpool: you won't be walking alone, right? You will never walk alone, all right? Because I'm not a Liverpool fan. So, all right. So here, don't walk alone. You have such a lot of data, and let's say you are teaching 5 classes. You need to do something, right? You feel like, okay, I want to be fair to my students. I need to treat them. I don't want to leave even one class behind. So again, you have a lot of data. Work together with the rest. Don't work alone.
It's about teachers being open-minded.
Yes. When you work alone, your decision.
Maybe another teacher may be able to use your intervention.
Yes, true, very true. And then whatever data, let's say in the middle of the year you are going to retire, the teacher who is going to replace you will have that access to the student's performance. Won't it be easier? All right. So in terms of you prepare the right data. Okay. Prepare for data access that is going to be shareable with others, and also prepare the team. Don't work alone. All right, and then another thing about this data collection, or when you are preparing for data collection, there will be three T's that you need to look at. One is technology. Okay, now we need technology, even to use Excel. That is the basic technology for data collection. Even if you use, let's say, Google Form, data will be converted into Excel, right? You need that technology, you need that knowledge, all right? Where to store, where to retrieve, and so forth. And then the next one, you need training. All right, you know the technology, but you don't know how to use it. That is one. Okay, that is what you need to prepare. And then time, make time. All right. So if you can't work alone, find a partner, work with a peer, and so forth. All right. The next step will be what Dr. Hairul said just now, in analysis. It will be where you will be inquiring a lot. This will be leading to a lot of questions. All right, a lot of questions you will be asking, because actually data is not about looking at it per se as such, but it will lead to more questions, more good questions. A lot of good questions actually. This is actually analysis is
we are working towards perfection.
Yes,
Improving.
True, very true. Analysis is the digging part. Okay, dig into the data. Dig into the data. Okay, first, before you really dig, you need to see the overview. Let's say you have the SPM data. You look at it as a whole, the big picture, how your school is performing, and zoom into your own class, how your students are performing. All right, and then you choose the area. For instance, let's say SPM is too big. Final year. All right, final year. We take final year. Next year you will be teaching these students, the same students. So you know you will be dealing with the same children, the same students. So what you want to know, choose the focus. All right? Internal assessment data will also be useful for you to work on with your next step. Yes. And then I like the idea that when you dig, you look and find a story. What is the story about? Isn't it interesting? Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah. So let's say when you said just now item analysis, we were teachers before, and then we were asked to analyze the items. All right. So why students score this question 100%? Why this class the same question but they scored different? Maybe you want to look at that. All right, so that will give you input. The same question being answered differently, being scored differently by different class. Maybe the level would be another one aspect, but again it will lead you to, okay, what type of question is that? Is it skimming and scanning? Then you will lead your reading class towards that improvement, right? Teach students on how to skim and scan. All right, so that will be one. And then when you find the story, don't keep it to yourself. Display the story. Yeah, and then when we are English teachers, we like to display the story in narrative. Not all will read, so make it presentable. All right, so when you analyze, you look into data, you find the focus, find the story and present it so anybody, any layman, when they are looking at it, they can understand. So that is where I'm going to highlight to the power of charts actually, to the power of charts. If you can look at the visuals that I'm going to share with you, all right? So the advantage of you using visual, okay, it will make your presentation simple. If you are sharing whatever story you have found just now, people can understand easily. All right, and then it's easy to understand. Add into your credibility, you are able to make complicated things simple. Yeah, and I would like to take one example from our course. Writing under here, yes. We lead our teachers to specific area, writing. Okay, and teachers need to focus either directed or continuous. Of course, the essay would be marked, and there would be a lot of red marks here and there. When we look at it, okay, has anyone who is not into teaching, I won't understand. Okay, so in order for you to make other people who are not in the teaching understand what are those marks about, you have to make it simple. So if you are looking at, let's say, for directed format, language, and content. So you need to visualize. So then when you present it in a way, you yourself will be easy to detect. Oh, my students is actually having problem in the format. Yes. Every time question about that is related with format, my students will have problems.
So the teacher comes up with like a rubric or something like a checklist.
Yes, true.
A checklist.
Yes.
True.
Yeah, true. Okay, and then in the same course as well, we lead our teachers on how to actually, from the essay, they can make it simple. We ask them to zoom in to grammar and non-grammar. Yeah. Language is big, as in the directed marking just now, even for continuous, right? So language element will be there. So we inform them how to go about it. We lead them, we assist them in a way that identify only two, grammar, non-grammar. Isn't it simple? All right, so that will be under
the grammar and non-grammar.
Yes.
Yes.
That's why, as what Dr. Khairul said, that analysis is going to be tedious, because you will take hours to really look at the essay. Let's say if you have teaching 5 classes,
Imagine 30. But you will become much aware of your student very individually.
Yes.
Like
And
this.
it's nothing new because you need to mark your students' work.
Yes.
So eventually you need to understand the students' work. So
It's actually getting things a bit more organized
True. Very true.
when we know what they are
Yes.
weak in.
True. Very true. And then has what we are trying to say that when you are analyzing, don't rely on one source. Maybe the final year exam, that will be one source of data. Don't rely on that per se. That's why you need, as what Dr. Hairul said just now, you need another element of students' work, students' worksheet. This is one. So dig into another source of data. Alright, so don't rely on one big data, like the assessment for SPM and so on.
there are other.
Yes, add
Other
in.
datas.
Okay, add in. All right. So and then again, it will lead to the
Action.
last.
The action.
Don't just look at it. Analyze. Then that's it.
So beautifully done,
Yeah.
presented.
Let's say they have already color coded the errors and everything. Oh, nice to look at. Then that's it. No, you need to act
on it. Yeah.
Alright. So I think that's the one that I will say that 3 simple steps. Maybe my explanation was like, wow, it's not that simple. Yeah. But then again, we make it simple. That prepare the correct data, prepare the right team if you are not able to work alone, and then analyze it in a way that it is to whatever you want to focus on. Is a big area of language. We have 4 basic skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So focus one at a time. Don't be too ambitious to like, oh, this one whole week I want to focus on 4. Alright, maybe one at a time. Okay, alright. So and then you act, meaning that you look at your instruction. Okay, your own instruction plus your next action.
Okay.
That's it.
That will be the planning.
Yes.
I noticed that both of you mentioned the word act and action. So probably that is going to be what are the teachers now thinking with the data or whatever they've analyzed, what they're going to do next.
Yes.
So it will be probably a lesson plan or an intervention or an activity. So
Classes that you have.
some kind of action plan, right? So can we now just discuss a little bit on how are we going to use data in the ESL context to improve directly students' performance? Dr. Khairul?
Okay. So when we talk about act or action, all right, So a simple word for act or action is your teaching, your instruction, not the planning anymore. It's the teaching, the action that you do in the classroom. So where we go back to my statement just now that the approach that you use in teaching will determine the type of data that you will have from the students. If you approach something that is likable to the students, something that works with what the students want and jive in with their needs, it will work. The data will be something that you want to see. The improvement, all right, in the data can be seen there. So this will inform you of the challenges or the strength that you have. Oh, now I know that I can do this actually with my students. I never know that I can do this. This is the strength that you discover in your own instruction. And also the weaknesses, probably I shouldn't do that in the class. I shouldn't be calling each and everyone. I might need to do the group work, for example, or the challenges. Certain students are not responding to you, so you understand a lot based on the approach that you use. Only one approach. The action, that is the action, the teaching that you do in the classroom. Okay, in an ESL context, well, there are 4 skills in English. So I just want to, basically, because PPK-BIS is basically on writing, and we look at students' performance in writing. So in the ESL context, when it comes to writing, we discover a lot of gaps. It's easy for us to discover a lot of gaps because evidences are everywhere. Every time they write essays or they write reflection or they just answer the questions, you will be able to see evidences of gaps. And we look at the gaps as something that is constructive, not destructive, meaning it informs us two things. First one is our own instruction. When you look at the gaps, you might be, first you need to question yourself first. Have I taught them this? Or have I shared them, with them this aspect? For example, past tense or present or tenses, for example. When it comes to tenses, the concept is time. We don't have that in Bahasa Malaysia, but we have that in English, the concept of time in verbs, in the tenses. So if students did not get the concept, there will be gaps in the evidences. Yeah, loops, holes everywhere. So if you really analyze your data and the act is correct, you'll be able to analyze that, to see, okay, it might be me, not, explaining to them clearly, or it might be the understanding of the students. It's not you. You explain it well, but the understanding, because of the gap in the concept now, because you don't have that in your own language. So you are introducing a new concept of time in the verb in writing. So they don't get that. Okay, so that might be the student's background, or L1, or language, first language. Yes. So when you look at data, you'll be able to understand, and you look at all the data that you have, then you'll be able to understand more. So that is why the action in ESL context is different, and that's for writing. Different from reading, different from speaking, different from listening. There are different strategies, interesting strategies in ESL. All right. So data, in short, help teachers to provide correct intervention to the correct issues to the student. If you don't analyze your data, for example, you give work to student but you don't mark, meaning that you collect the data but you don't analyze. That's how it is, and you cannot do the next. You cannot act on it because you don't know where. You just take medicine, one medicine for all, which doesn't work. That's what happened in classes, English ESL classes, if you don't analyze the data that you have. Shamin.
So why do we need to have data? Right? At the end of the day, why do we need to have data? Basically,
I came across a very interesting statement from an expert saying that without data, you are just a person with an opinion.
Yes, only opinion.
Yes.
Assumptions.
We assume that we have been teaching English year in, year out.
Yes.
That's the same strategy you apply throughout, and SPM results still more than 80%. However, if you look in detail, you scrutinize your view towards the analysis of the data. You will notice that is for the overall, but for your own classroom, will it reflect that practice for your own self? Alright, so actually when you need data, okay, not to say that my students are all A, I managed to get all good results, but you won't know basically that quality. Alright, so because yes, we want data because we want to have evidence to prove that you are actually generating impact on students' performance.
Yeah.
Alright, you have evidence. Don't just simply say, yeah, my students can speak. Based on what data? Alright, so from the first year, let's say, the 2nd January, my students were unable to speak even a single word. But throughout, you have tried so many strategies, and it worked. But then again, you didn't document. That is another one.
Yeah.
Alright, so you can just Tom and Jerry can just say that I worked well. So why do I need to look at other strategies? Alright, because actually data will lead you to a point that actually there will be more improvement needed actually.
True.
Alright,
Yeah.
so and then that it will show actually you have already made a difference. 2nd January 2020, for instance, students were unable to speak, not a single word. But with your continuous strategies, you made them able to speak like more than 100 words.
100 words.
Per minute. Per minute, okay. Alright, so I just said with assumption, I don't have data on that. Alright, so demonstrate that you make a difference in your students' performance. If you say that their writing was 0, they were unable to write a simple sentence, prove it.
Yes.
Alright, and then if you want to tackle on the specific area of sentence structure, then you know.
Yes.
Why are you looking at sentence structure for these few weeks, for instance? Alright, so it's basically, yes, we need data to assist us to improve not only our students' performance, but our own teaching performance. Okay.
I think at this juncture, I must congratulate the PPK, BIS team and ELTC for the effort of bringing such consciousness and awareness to how important data is, associating the word richness to data. And now I would like to also ask if this is a new culture for all of us. Are we all moving towards a high-performing, data-enriched culture? What do you think the challenges will be that we have to face if we are going to take up this as a culture or a habit or a practice, especially now that teaching and learning is moving towards a blended and online approach, and the minister has been mentioning terms like learning from home, home-based learning, and I just came across an article this morning on self-paced learning and how home-based learning can actually accommodate to self-paced learning. How will this data-rich culture be adapted into this new type of learning or teaching and learning approach? Everything is becoming online, everything is becoming blended, it's being flipped, it's being synchronized, asynchronized, and you know, all kinds of terms, remote learning and digitalized. What do you think the challenges are going to be, and how are we actually going to face it? How are we actually going to help the teachers face this new norm, this new rich culture we are trying to bring into the education or system itself. Dr. Rashida?
If you highlighted the word data-rich culture, right? We are moving towards that. I don't say that we are not that, but to say that we are data-rich oriented, yes. We are being, that practice, data-oriented practice. This is the way that I've already done it. Year in, year out, you are required to record whatever evidence, let's say for speaking, for instance, you need to record it in a form provided. Okay, so that's a practice. Yes, you have that record. Okay, but then again, just put it there in a file without you analyzing it. Why? Digging into it. Why? Okay, because I am referring to the experience that I had in school when we were asked to do the ULBS. All right. So basically, yes, we need to have. We refer to a form. Okay, we tick.
Yep.
All right. But then there will be rubrics there. However, we don't react to it. Let's say when the invigilator came.
The examiner.
The examiner or the PPD came, and then I will just share that there. The file is ready. The file was ready. It was whatever. But then in order to look into it, analyzing it was not there at the moment. All right, it's not yet the culture. We are. We are yet into that. Okay. However, with the PPKBIS, which started in 2013, we tried to lead to that data-rich culture. You really utilize that, all right? And then talking about the challenges, yes, first would be, I don't know where to start. That would be the challenge.
Yes.
I have data, but where to start?
Yes.
All right? And then how to express. I know this is about speaking, but how am I going to express the issue here? All right? And then another challenge that I can highlight would be the structure. The absence of your structured data. You don't have it. Let's say, for instance, the writing essay written by your students. Once you return to them, you won't be able to have it anymore. So it's difficult for you to get access to it. The accessibility towards that data. And then I can see that data literacy, not all teachers are able to really understand what is it you need to know. All right? Are you going to look at it in a statistical way, or are you going to just look at a simple percentage or average? If you don't know that, that's where the training will come in. All right. So every challenges, what I can see is that when you are having such, you don't have the knowledge, go for training. If you think that training is not feasible for you, go and find a partner. There will be somebody who can work along with you. All right. And
True.
I guess if you are having a skeptical thinking towards data, it's high time actually for you to
Change,
that.
alter.
Yes, be open
Shift.
about it.
Shift your thoughts.
Yes, shift your thoughts. And then again, you get more excited actually with data when you are working with others, rather than you are working in silo. All right, I'm cracking my head looking what actually this data means. I've highlighted yellow and green, but what are those yellow and greens referring to?
True.
Okay, and how to present this. So that is something that the challenge that you can overcome. You can't work alone, work with a partner, or work as a team. That is the culture that we are yet there. Okay, we have the panel meetings maybe once a month. However, maybe the discussion is not towards that. All right, so try to change that practice.
Some issues in one classroom may be similar to the other classroom, and the two teachers can actually cooperate together, work as a team, and come up with a module or an intervention that they could actually share, and that makes things way much
very
easier.
true.
And
Okay.
true. And coming towards the end, Dr. Khairul, what would you like to share about or the best way of in understanding and making use of data in simple terms before we come to the end of our session today?
All right. For the audience information, ELTC, at ELTC we have a program called PPKBIS, Program Peningkatan Kemahiran Bahasa Inggeris di Sekolah, or in English we call it School Support Plan, where in this program we help teachers to design and also to implement the data-driven approach, strategy in order to help students to achieve better marks in the SPM English. So we started the program in 2013, and until now we have a module here, and this is the module for the school support plan. I think many teachers had attended the course that we had organized at the ELTC. All right. So what is the school support plan? It is a program that is designed in order to help teachers to plan, implement, and assess based on the data that they get from the students, their own students in the classroom. So this is a plan that teachers will implement in their own classroom. All right. So we hope that by helping the teachers, we'll be able to help the students. We'll not be able to reach the students. So we hope that by helping all these teachers, we'll be able to help the students to achieve better result in the SPM. So the key point here that I would like to highlight is how the program, actually is more or less like what we have explained at the beginning of the program just now, where we help teachers to collect data and understand the data that we have in the classroom, and then we help them to analyze the data in the simplest way as possible in order to make them understand the data that they have on their students, and be able to help them to understand the type of intervention they need to do for the student, and also lastly to assess the student and whether they need to repeat or they need to move on, or they can design different lesson for the student. So we help teachers to do all that in a systematic way, so that teachers will not see this as something that is big, but small and related to the thing that they are doing every day. All right, this is what this program is doing for the English teachers in the selected schools, not all schools. All right, so we call this looking at the cycle of improvement, not only for the students, but also for your own instruction. All right, so it works two ways: improve your own teaching, and also improve your students' performance in the classroom. So if you need to know more about the program, you are free, feel free to, to contact us. Go to our website, www.eltc.edu.my. So I will try our best to help you there if you need help in this. I must say that, research, I don't want to call it a research because it's a big word. This action research is going to be bigger and bigger, in the future, because looking at the pandemic nowadays, where we cannot go and see our students every day. It's not the face-to-face kind of, lesson anymore. It's basically it's online, or you just send the homework to the students. So what will speak for you will be the students' data. How do you assess your students? By looking at the data that students give back to you. From there, the data will inform the next step that you can take in the classroom. Without that, you'll not be able to move. You'll be giving the same medication for the wrong sickness or problem. So that will not work in the online class. So you need the data at the paramount level now. It's not because you cannot see your students anymore. So I think data is very, very, very important now. And if teachers still feel that it's a big word, I think maybe we should change our perception on data. It's something that you need now at the paramount, concern and level. Dr. Shamini.
I think this very comprehensive webinar that we had today for about 1 hour or so would have given a very vivid, pretty clear picture about what student data is and how do you collect the data that is surrounding your classroom, and what are you going to do with this data next, and then how you're going to face the challenges, and the most important is how teachers are going to use this data to come up with lesson plans or interventions which are appropriate or best fit, or that basically accommodates their students' needs, especially now that the students are having to study at home or learn at home, and teachers have to come up with everything online. So as we were going through this webinar live, there were a few questions popping in and out, and as I promised, we would probably be able to only answer one question by the viewers, and all the other questions we promise to answer you on the chat box, don't worry. And this one interesting question that I would probably ask both our panel of speakers today to try to share their views. These two words actually really caught my eye and my attention. Is it possible to reuse or recycle data for another group or classroom or students? Dr. Rashida, please.
It is advisable actually not to recycle data, because that particular data, if I can say it, is meant for that particular group. You are diagnosing that particular patient, that particular students in your class, and then you cannot assume that same case will be, for the other class. The strategies might be the same, but you still need to adapt here and there. You can't be applying 100% from 1A with 1B. Okay? So even if you notice, the language will be one area that they are weak in. Maybe in 1A class, language area, most errors would occur on past tense. Alright? Same case with 1B. Language errors will be on, focus will be on language. Might be the errors on subject-verb agreement. So it will be something different. So that data is meant for that group, and this data is meant for, these data are meant for this. So to recycle data for you to improve your own instruction, for you to reflect on your own instruction, it might be acceptable, but to apply it for the
same
room,
all right.
Strategies might be yes.
So it is basically based on your data, what kind of intervention you do, but probably the intervention can be recycled or reused, but data may not be the same, right? Okay, I think we don't have enough time to be answering all the other questions. Quite a lot of good questions popped up. As the organizers, we would like to thank our beautiful, wonderful speakers for today, And thank you all for joining us, and we hope that you are able to take away a lot of useful information and new ideas and thoughtful suggestions that we shared today from this session. At this juncture, we would also like to again thank BSDP, BPG, ELTC, and of course KPM, all in all, for giving us this opportunity from the Department of Research and Innovation, English Language Teaching Center, Ministry of Education. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe.